So temperatures got down to -8 last night, and right in the middle of it all, something blew out our window. So I'm going to get into that in a little bit, but first of all, I wanted to tell you all the things that went bad and went well besides the window for all our preparations with this major storm that came through. Now, before I get into this, I know there are going to be dozens of people. Why don't you do this and why don't you do that? Well, I'm not going to prepare for a once-in-a-lifetime storm just so I can see it once. Our system's held up very well. Given the circumstances, I'm very proud of what happened. Even Carolyn is not upset with all the things that went bad and all the things that went well. We did pretty good. So as you know, yesterday I filled the water tank and got the water tank up to 48 degrees. That was early in the morning, and all day the temperatures dropped. So by the time I went to bed at 8:30, 9 o'clock, somewhere around there, the temperature outside was 0 degrees. And the water was still running at that time. What I decided to do, since the water temperature was 48 degrees, every couple of hours I would turn the water on so the water had a chance to get through the pipes, because that warm water would have came through. Now we also had our fans running, ventilation, and this worked really well. It kept the temperatures at 0 degrees above freezing. We were still about 34 degrees or somewhere around there. So I thought we were gonna do pretty good. So I told Carolyn when she went to bed to light the stove back up or put more wood into the stove and run the water again, to run that 48 degree water. Now I know the temperature had been dropping in the water tank all day, but my goal was just get us up to today, and then I could refill it and try to get the temperature back up again. So at 4 o'clock, I started the fire. So I tell you, we had to start the stove a little bit more frequently than normal. Usually we only have to start it about every 8 hours or so. Yesterday it was anywhere from 4 to 5 hours. So I started it at 4 o'clock in the evening, and I thought, well, that should get us till 11 o'clock. Carolyn can start the stove at 11. Well, at 8, I had to start it again. The temperature had already dropped down to 69 degrees by 8 o'clock. So I started it again, and I asked Carolyn to put wood in it at 11. Well, at 11 o'clock, she started to put wood in it, and I woke up, and I realized it was still pretty warm in here. And I said, well, let's just go ahead and skip it. So I already had my alarm set for 2 o'clock. I planned on getting up at 2. Well, at 1 o'clock, it was chilly in here. And I thought, well, I better get up and start the wood stove. So I did. I started it up. And then at 2 o'clock, my alarm went off. Well, by this time, the flame had already kind of died down, and it still wasn't very warm in here yet. So I put another log in it. And then when I got up at 5, it was back down to 65 degrees in here. So it was cooling off pretty quick. Today we've been kind of just adding a log here and there. I don't think we need to do that anymore. We'll let this die off, start it up when it cools down in here. But right now it's pretty warm. It's about 80 degrees in here. So at 11 o'clock, Carolyn turned on the water to let it run like I'd asked her to, and it didn't run. So it froze. The tank is not frozen. Everybody's going to say, oh, the tank is frozen. The tank is not frozen. That's not the problem we're having. It's the plumbing that we're having problems with. Always have the problems with the plumbing. Last year we didn't have any problems, but it didn't get this cold. So the water pump is froze. And the way we know the water pump is froze is because it didn't kick on. So we have an RV water pump. I've showed you all this before. So the water pump didn't kick on. So I immediately jumped up out of bed and unplugged it from the battery just in case it started to try to turn over. I didn't want it to burn up the motor. It may break the pump. It did the first time, but with it having only been a couple hours, and it didn't freeze that much. I mean, it just went under freezing when the pump froze in the ventilation. And when it warms up today, I'm going to test it to see if the pump's shot. We'll see. Not the huge problem. It really isn't, because of course we still have the well as a backup. So I needed to get the chickens fed and watered this morning, so I went outside to get all that done. Of course, we don't have running water now, so I have to do it all manually. Before everybody tells me, oh, you need to do this, you need to do that. First of all, everybody in town is without water. Of course, this town is unincorporated, so they all have wells, everybody. And on Facebook, there's a group dedicated to the town down there, and they're all screaming nobody's got water. There's a trailer park down the way And they told everybody not to let their water drip, because what will happen is underneath the trailer, mobile home trailer, those pipes can freeze up, all the drainage pipes can freeze up, and then you'll get water backed up into your house. We had a similar problem the first year we were here. Our drain froze up and we were letting the water drip. So we didn't do that this year. But again, I am really happy that we got down to such low temperatures. We got down to at least 0 degrees and it didn't freeze. So I would say we got down to probably -5, 4 or 5 before we froze up, maybe -6. I came out this morning to get water out of the well. And you know my system here, this is our well and it runs off a generator or solar. Now yesterday I ran this and I filled the tank. The generator ran just fine. Now, one of the things I have always heard about propane generators, this is a dual fuel generator. It runs off propane or gasoline. I've always heard that it's really hard to start or impossible to start in cold temperatures. The pressure in the tank, I guess, decreases or something. There are going to be people out there who knows this better than me, but all we need to know, you and me, is it doesn't do well in the cold. So I came out and I wanted to start it with the propane and it just wouldn't start. I mean, I couldn't even pull it. It was just impossible to pull. It was like it was locked up nearly. So I thought, well, I'll get the other generator. Now the other generator is really old. This one's not even a year old yet. That other one is probably 5 or maybe 5 years old. I brought it up here. Now it was running all night. I let it run all night to kind of trickle charge the batteries. It got so cold I was worried about the batteries not surviving. I didn't even shut it off. I just brought it up here, added some gas. Remember, the reason I stopped using it for the well was it was really struggling to run the well. So I didn't really expect it to do well. Well. So I did. I plugged it in and it got water to come up to this area right here, which I need to talk about that too. And it shut off. And I tried it several times and it just kept shutting off. So it's too old. It just can't do it anymore. And it doesn't really have the power to run this well. I'm really pushing it as it is. This one's 2,500 watts. That one's only 2,000 watts. So it's a real struggle even when it was new. Well, running it all night, you know, it shut down on me. Running it all night, I guess it uses oil. That old generator has used oil since the day I bought it. And it has a low oil shutoff sensor. The thing is while it's running, if there's oil in it, that sensor is always covered with oil, so it doesn't shut off. But when you try to restart it, it won't start because it doesn't have any oil. So I had to add oil. Now remember, it's -6 degrees, 8 degrees outside. It's cold. While I'm on this subject, before I go much further, there are a few things that you have to have when you live off-grid in these kind of temperatures. You got to have waterproof boots. And my shoes, my boots, hiking boots, whatever you want to call them, are waterproof. And steel toe. I get steel toe in case I ever come down with a chainsaw on my toe, I don't cut my toe off. You got to have the most expensive Carhartt jacket there is. I'm not trying to brag, but the other ones just don't do as well. This Carhartt is absolutely fantastic. I'm always warm in it. The other thing you got to have is go to Orchland's, which is where I got the Carhartt, and get yourself a pair of waterproof gloves. I wouldn't have been able to do any of this. I mean, by the time I spent an hour out here, and I should have been froze, and I was doing pretty good. My hands are cold right now. I mean, just downright frosty. And I've only been out here, well, the timer on this says 10:50, and I've already been inside some of this video. One of the problems I had was the water on my well, I have a hole in the pipe down there, so the water drains back down. That way this pipe never ever freezes. And it's just my backup plan in case, you know, the tank freezes, this won't. Well, the nozzle itself still holds a little water, so you got to come out with a torch and thaw that out. It only takes a second. The problem is it's so cold out here. The propane in the torch, I just left it on the shelf for a minute while I was messing with the generator. The pressure decreased so much it wouldn't even light. So I'd take it back in, warm it up, and bring it back out. What I decided to do, since the generators weren't going to work, is I brought this one inside. And since it's dual fuel, I added some gas to it, and it started right up. Now, I don't like this one as much as I like the old one. The old one has a choke on it. This new one doesn't because it's dual fuel. It's supposed to be self-choking or something, but it doesn't. It was hard to start. But we got it started. I just had to bring it in the house for a few minutes, maybe 10 minutes, and it warmed up enough that I was able to pull that rope. It just wouldn't pull. It was tough. So got water, we filled up buckets, got the chicken some water. So much better position now. Now the other thing we had a problem with was the inverter, which converts our DC electric into AC electric. It would run for 10 minutes and then shut off. Kick back on, run for 10 minutes and shut off. The only thing I can think is it got too cold. The instructions on the inverter says it's not supposed to get below a certain temperature. I can't remember what that temperature is, but I guess it just got too cold and it didn't work. Now it's working fine, but I'm glad we didn't have the refrigerator on it. Yesterday I told you we put our meat in the cooler here so we could shut off the refrigerator because it was going to be a real strain on the batteries. I didn't want to run the generator all night, but I ended up doing it anyways. So all our meat's in here. Good thing we did that. I would hate to have done that in the middle of the night. So far, all our backup plans have worked. Everything's worked. It's been a bit of a struggle, don't get me wrong. I didn't want to be out here in the -6 degrees trying to get a generator to start, but it did start. And so that means we have water. It's not ideal, but at least we have water, which is a lot better than what I can say for folks out in town. They don't have water. So I told you we have that natural spring down there in the town. I walked down there and there was 4 or 5 people down there getting water out of that natural spring. So it's nice to have that as a backup option. So here's the window. You can see maybe that it's frosty. This is a double paned window. The frost is not on this side, it's on the inside. And I guess is what happened, and I Googled this, and it happens to a lot of homes, is that ice starts to constrict the glass, and it popped the glass right here. I don't know how well you can see it, but you can hear my fingernail running across it. Fortunately, this is double paned, which is a huge blessing. So I'm not sure what we're going to do about that. Right now, Carolyn doesn't seem too concerned about it. If I have to replace it, fortunately, this is a replacement window. So all I had to do is take the screws out. I mean, we bought this, I installed it, and I would have to probably special order a window to replace this big 6-foot window. I think it's 6 foot. It'd probably be $400 or $500 is my guess. Carolyn was just dozing off when she thought she heard a bird hit a window, but she didn't think much of it. You know, she woke up, she thought, well, maybe it was the stove cooling off, because it makes a lot of noise when it's cooling off and heating up. And when I woke up, it was still dark, but I saw the ice on the window, but I didn't see the crack. After the sun came up is when I realized we had a crack in the window. That is something I didn't expect. Now, here's the thing. People are going to tell me all the things I need to do, and quite honestly, I'm just not interested. I'm not the type of that wants advice from people that I didn't ask advice for. I feel like we did really well. The temperatures got so cold, it broke windows. Think about that. And we still have water, we have heat. The chickens, I opened up the chicken coop, I forgot to tell you that, and they're just as happy as a lark. So I took the temperature in there to see how hot it was, and it was just under freezing. It was about 31, 30, it kept flicking around 30, 31. Great temperatures for chickens. They love that kind of temperature. They start to suffer when it's in the single digits. They don't like that. What kept them warm is, in the video I showed you, we put a blanket over the chicken coop and a tarp and kept all the wind out of it. And their body heat is what warms it up. And man, you stick your head in there and it's like, wow, this is nice. So we made it. Probably better than the folks down the hill in town. You'll click this up next box to take the video where I'm showing you the chicken coop. So I hope I can inspire you to stay warm when nobody else can. Thanks for watching.